What are the main challenges in the engineering area per se for any foreign company in the Indian market? Of course, like you said, you have to adapt to Indian conditions. So
Yeah,
that's on the broad level. But
yeah.
specifically in the engineering stream for the engineering teams here, what are the challenges and what possibly are the key strategies to address these challenges? I am just combining these two. So you feel free to
Yeah, yeah,
go about it the way you want to
right.
answer.
So I think one of the, I will talk about soft and hard challenges.
Mhm.
The soft challenges are in terms of the cultural match. So every global OEM and tier one have their own organization culture and a way of working. And that is, I will say, something which may be slightly different from the way a pure Indian company may work.
Yes.
So that is one cultural challenge, and they want to streamline that so that there are no misunderstandings and there are no mismatches in the way the global headquarters works and the way the Indian engineering arm or the subsidiary works.
Hmm.
This culture, the soft point, also includes what is called a quality mindset. So what could be acceptable as a chalta hai attitude would not be acceptable for an overseas supplier.
Hmm.
So therefore, they are looking for that quality consciousness, which should match either the Japanese standard or the European mindset or the American mindset, because they are supplying to a more advanced end customer segment.
Hmm.
The end customer segment in our country is obviously economically and expectation wise was at least different from a typical end buyer in Europe or the US or in Japan. That we all know that. And all the quality standards, everything is tailored towards satisfying the end customer. So that meeting that mindset of quality, what is right, what is not right, is one of the soft but very important challenges.
Mhm.
The second challenge was heading of an Indian center and whom to depute here, because to make that bridge in terms of communication, they need a leader for the engineering center. And it was always a challenge for the overseas suppliers whom to depute. It's important for them to depute a real leader, only then he can lead the Indian team here and also carry enough weight with the headquarters. So, but those are certain qualities, and that was very difficult for them and still difficult for many because they have their own challenges and own programs running in Europe, US, and Japan.
Hmm.
So that is one, finding an expat leader and then growing an Indian leader in place of the expat leader. And those are some companies do it very well, some companies find it very challenging. The next challenge is that the cost of Indian talent is also increasing. Many of them came to India thinking that it's a very low cost country.
Hmm.
But India, if you really get into engineering, which is a premium field or automotive design, very soon people find that the costs are not as low as an average salary of an engineer.
Hmm.
So many of them found that the costs are midway between, let's say, Europe and let's say Vietnam or something like that. And if they really want to do very low cost engineering, low end work, low cost, low end, then Vietnam is a solution. And if they want low work cost, but high end value added work, then India is the right choice. But the costs will be not as low as Vietnam. So these are certain things which the overseas companies also have to digest and understand.
Hmm.
And many of them understood after they landed here. And the third factor is talent retention. Overseas companies normally have very low attrition,
Yes.
maybe 2%. So people don't leave those companies for maybe 20 years, 25 years, and they grow in a technical ladder or a research scientist, and they work for a very long duration. At least I know in Japan, there is hardly attrition. It's a lifetime job, as they call it. And in Europe also, in certain areas in research fields, it's a lifetime job. People do not leave. But in Indian engineering centers, the Indian mindset is to grow very quickly and very perceptibly in society.
Aspirational.
And aspirational, yeah.
Yes.
And that perceptible growth may not come if a person is simply moving from engineer to senior engineer to research engineer to senior research engineer.
Hmm.
And that kind of a perception may not come. So people tend to leave and look for greener pastures, for a bigger title or a bigger designation role and so on. And that many European companies and Japanese companies have not been able to understand that very well. With the result that they went lower down to tier 2 and tier 3 engineering colleges. and they have avoided going to the top-notch Indian engineering institutes like IITs and NIT to some extent. So if you see the cross-section of a lot of engineering centers, you will find very less few people from IIT and very lot of majority of people from the tier 2, tier 3 institutes. And that's also because the cost structure is very different for an engineer from IIT as compared to an engineer from a tier 3 or tier 4 institute. And the Europeans or Japanese or American suppliers, if they are looking at only cost reduction, they want cost reduction, and they are not looking at designing capability and retaining very expensive engineers in India, because they can find that in Europe itself. An expensive IIT engineer will be as expensive as an engineer in Europe. So it doesn't make sense for them to hire from IITs here, right?
Right.
When you do that, automatically you are saying that, okay, let us do low-end work in India. So the nature of work also automatically settles to an equilibrium with the kind of people that are hired. And so then the challenge is that Indian engineering centers are doing mid-end work in many cases or low-end work. And the headquarters land up controlling the high-end work and controlling the front-ending programs. The third biggest challenge is that the Indian market is not having as much of volumes in the high technology areas as Europe, US, and Japan. Electric vehicles is an example. You know that electric vehicle sales in India is very small, minuscule, right? Whereas in Europe, it's picking up dramatically. China is picking up dramatically. China is much, much ahead of India in terms of volume sales of cars in advanced technologies like electric vehicles, charging stations, and they have maybe 10 times that of what we have. So the engineering center set up by a supplier in China is tailored to the Chinese market, right? So it makes more sense for them to ramp up that center rather than ramping up a center in India and working very remotely from here for the Indian market servicing alone. These are certain factors which are inhibiting the large growth of certain areas of engineering in India. I'm not talking about software, I'm talking about core vehicle areas.
Engineering. Okay.
Yeah.
And so are there any specific strategies that come to your mind to address these challenges which foreign companies should deploy in Indian market as far as engineering concerned?
Yes, there are several solutions by which Indian engineering companies have grown to a large scale. So the decision has to be taken on what is the objective of the Indian center. So I think that's the first strategy. Is it a low cost center or is it a high end delivery center? Both are different. One could also have a mix of these two objectives and have one part of the engineering center doing very high end work and one part doing low end work, which is for cost reduction. So if that based on such a strategy, the organization structure also gets set according to this. The cost structure also is different. The second is we also have experimented with a technical ladder, where the technical ladder is for engineers who are specializing in certain areas, and they will have a long-term career with attractive growth path independent of the managerial cadre. So those who are desirous of management and managing large teams will grow in a path A, and those who are interested in research can freely grow in a path B. So that kind of solutions we have experimented in some of my past companies to take care of some of these challenges. Of course, there are a number of challenges. For each of these, there is a specific solution.
Sure.